state your name and your location for the record. Start with Regina.
Regina Gorham, and I'm in my home in Kalamazoo.
Tim.
Tim Hills in my home in Kalamazoo.
Fred.
Fred Edison in my home in Kalamazoo.
Lene. And Lene, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Renee Powell Wilson in my home in Kalamazoo.
Catherine.
Catherine White at my home in Kalamazoo.
And I am Joshua Koenig, and I am in my home in Delton. So approval of absences. Kyle is not here, and I haven't heard from Kyle, nor has Sharon. Do any of the other commissioners by chance have a message from Kyle? Okay. I mean, in my opinion, it's not approved, but is there a motion to approve the absence? I'm not calling for one,
without notice, we can't make a motion to approve.
We can't? Okay. All right. So it is listed as not approved.
Right. And if he shows up halfway through the meeting, he's good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Approval of agenda. Is there any discussion on the agenda?
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Chair.
Any commissioners? Pam.
A question and a potential addition with your permission. Were we not supposed to have Dorla Bonner with us this month?
She was.
Go ahead, Sharon.
She was unable to be with us because she just got a whole bunch of things have been happening in the diversity lately, and she just was a little overwhelmed. And I don't think we were quite ready with the new funding that came through. That the city commission, I think they put $100,000 towards it or something. She wanted to kind of get an idea to a way to process all that before she started, working with us.
You're talking about the proposal to go throughout the city, everyone in the city to talk about diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so she just didn't want to jump us in and stick us in a position where we might actually be better off somewhere else. So
okay.
So we're still talking though. We're still communicating.
Okay. And a potential addition, just a very short couple of comments about our grant making meeting on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was, last Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring that up in my report, and rather than add anything, why don't I just, I'll give you time to comment on that in operations as well. Does that work?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Fred seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Introduction of guests. So it's just you tonight, Pam. Go for it.
Pam O'Connor from my home in Kalamazoo.
Citizen comments on non-agenda items and correspondence.
There were no citizen comments right now at this time.
Right, thank you. Okay, moving on to the financial report. Last week, information probably hasn't come through in time. Well, it didn't come through in time to make the agenda, but last week I spoke with Rebecca Kick, and the wheels are moving on that to begin getting some updates. Hopefully we will have a lot more concrete information next month.
Yes.
I did receive an update that the transfer from the HPC to the O'Connor Fund is underway. Is that correct, Sharon?
Yes, it is. And I just got some stuff from, I was away yesterday for a doctor's appointment in my cousin's funeral, virtual funeral. And so I just didn't get around to checking my email until this afternoon, literally about an hour ago. And Marcy did send the financial report. I will send everybody a synopsis, a summary after the meeting, probably tomorrow, with all the numbers in and everything else. I just didn't have a chance to go with it because it's like 6 different, sheets.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Lene, by chance, has Marcy contacted you yet? No? Okay. That will be happening hopefully very, very soon, and we can get a meeting set up. But by the next meeting, by next month, we will have some more concrete figures. But
What's her last name?
Dix, D-I-X.
yeah, Marcy Dix.
Dix.
Okay, okay, because if I don't recognize someone,
Oh,
I just
sure.
erase
Oh,
it.
good point. You know what I'll do is I will also send out, again, I'll send out an kind of an, Marcy, this is Lene, Lene, this is Marcy. And I'll copy both of you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so but the good news is we do have finally some forward progress on that. Regarding the budget, we're gonna need to wait and see what has been done. Kyle's here, awesome. All right, so we can strike that last part under absences from the record. Where was I?
You were talking about budget and.
Oh yeah, thank you. I don't yet fully know what the situation on the budget was. I have a feeling that that Marcy went ahead and did the budget, and we'll have to take a look at it. At this point in time, and we can talk about this, but at this point in time, so long as kind of there's something on paper and it's in compliance with the city, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense for us to go back and monkey with it, because we're just going to need to do a new budgeted again in a couple months or in a few months.
That's true.
But,
yeah.
But as for right now, I think we'll wait and see where all of that stands, and we can address that when we have the financial records. But again, we'll have to wait and see where everything stands. So, any comments on any of that before we move on? Yeah, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought there was more to that. I thought you were just saying thank you for me answering your.
That's it. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. I'm happy to do it. So, okay, at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Sharon for a little bit, because as we talked about the past couple months, we thought it would be a really good idea, especially for the new commissioners, to kind of go through a synopsis and a bit of an orientation on the Kalamazoo Historic Preservation Commission, how it was founded a little bit, and what the commission has been doing for the past few years, and kind of get everybody up to speed with where we are now and how we got here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Sharon.
Yep. Well, I just want to say, whoever is there from the city, can you let me share screen?
Actually, I believe Neil is the host, so he would be able to let you share screen.
Hey, Neil, can you let me share screen?
Should be all set. Sorry about that, Sharon.
Thank you. And there. Share. Here we go. Okay, so you guys, see. I don't see it, but you guys can see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to do the show. I've got it on my other screen, so I'm good. So the Kalamazoo Historic Preservation Commission, let me see, forward. There we go. The first interested in preservation started in 1948. We had the Kalamazoo County Historical Society long before that. That was going from the late 19th century on. But the first serious historical commission or historical society started in 1948. And one of the big things they wanted to do when they started was to go through people's attics and closets to make sure important documents were not being discarded. So I think they were on your page there, Regina. So they got in June 1965, after Willis Dunbar, who wrote Kalamazoo and How It Grew, our Kalamazoo history, he got it started so that we would have a historical commission. It was improved in June 1965, which is the year before the National Historic Preservation Act. So we were preceding them by just a little bit. This is what they wrote as the duties of the Kalamazoo Historic Preservation Commission. Now, this is something that Pam sent us to as one of the documents dealing with, some of the stuff that she's been working on. So I'm not going to read this all through. If you want it, I'd be happy to send it to you anytime. But it's basically inventory, collect, publish, preserve records and documents, encourage and promote preservation, educate, and just essentially advocate, not advocate, that's the one word that was struck actually, but to support the inclusion of preservation in planning and land use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we've been doing that ever since that. The very first preservation project we had, the commission, or at their first meeting, they wrote bylaws, inventory, they wanted to inventory and publish a list of sites, publish a book on buildings, mark all the historic buildings, generate publicity, which might encourage financial donation, and to restore the Ashton Flour Mill, which was located at the corner of Mount Olivet and Riverview. The mill race and the creek is still there. The dam is still there, but the rest of it is long since gone. And to do a historic bus tour. I have to say we've done pretty much all of that since 1969. So that's pretty good. I just wanted to quick go over some of the acronyms you will hear. I'm trying, as I speak, as opposed to write, I will try to say the full name of whatever the acronym is, but these are the most common ones. The National Park Service is pretty much in charge of preservation throughout the United States on most levels. The Advisory Council, it's the Advisory Council, it's a presidential appointee. The SHPO is the State Historic Preservation Office. HABS is the Historic American Building Survey. HALS is the Historic American Landscape Survey. Both those were started during the Great Depression to keep artists and architects and other people like that busy with paid work from the federal government. Section 106 is federally funded projects, and we'll get to that, our own review of that at the end of this meeting. That's one of the last things we'll do. National Register of Historic Places. I think we know that a little bit. The National Register is nationally recognized places that are properly documented and listed on the National Register. There's hundreds of thousands of them. The NTHP is the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is a nonprofit that does preservation work all over the country. And MHPN is the Michigan Historic Preservation Network, which is our statewide nonprofit for preservation. This is why we preserve. This is a map of Kalamazoo. Someone did this for me about 12, 13 years ago. And all the items that are colored in white are buildings that are now gone. Some have been replaced, some have not. But the map, the aerial view itself is from the late 1950s. You can tell that because this is the old library. And this is the old post office. So this is all from around the 1950s. So this is the kind of turnover that downtown Kalamazoo has gone through that, you know, these are the things that we don't want to stop at all, but we really want to continue to have a say in what's still there. Shoot, I thought I did a shorter version of this. Oh, well, sorry about that. In June 1970, Public Act 169, this is a Michigan state law, came into play that allowed communities to create local historic districts. This is where all the power is in historic throughout the United States, but especially in Michigan. The local historic district commission has the power to regulate what happens to a historic property. The National Register, people think, oh, it's the national one, that must be the most powerful. No, the National Register established objective standards. It's honorary. It protects, it requires review for federally licensed or funded projects, makes you eligible for the tax credit, and there are hundreds of thousands of properties. The local historic district uses these same objective standards, and the process to designate a local historic district is regulated by Public Act 169. It's quasi-judiciary, which means that the decisions of the local historic district commission have the force of law and are binding to the property owner. They only review the exterior, and it's the strongest possible protection that's available in Michigan for historic resource. In Kalamazoo, our first district was in 1973. And it was the South Street Historic District between Westnedge and Oak Street. So it was not a lot of properties, but it was, you know, that was our first historic district. Today, we've got 2,070, right about that, in 5 historic districts, including 9 single resource districts. The Marlboro is a single resource. The train station, the water tower, these are single resource districts. The Ladies' Library was the first thing in Kalamazoo to be listed on the National Register in 1970. So that was within 4 years after the register was established. In 1972, as we were studying to make a historic district commission, we had our we're getting ready to establish our historic district commission with the South Street Historic District. The city attorney wanted to get rid of one and just have one commission, and both commissions said, no, we want to have two. The functions were different. The Preservation Commission worked very hard with the Save the Tower campaign and other bicentennial projects that were happening in 1976, obviously. We started our first historic resource survey in 1973. That was run by Peter Schmidt, who was a professor of history at WMU. The second one was the Stewart Area Historic District in 1976, excuse me. In 1978, we got $8,500 for a 3-phase survey. We did, the 78 was the Sprague survey. It was a reconnaissance level, the same thing we're doing for the entire city coming up this year, except they just did 4 or 5 areas. They did not do the entire city. The second phase was inventory with history and recommendations. And this is when the Haymarket Historic District was studied and proposed. This is a picture of 242 to 246 East Michigan, back before any work was done on it. And it was pretty much vacant at that time, had been for a while. In 1980, January 1980, the Haymarket Local Historic District was established 3.5 months before the tornado swept through. So that meant that there was money going into some of these buildings because of a tragedy, but it meant that we got a lot of historic work done on buildings. After the district was established, the restoration had to be done to historic district standards. So the cheese grater facades left, the cornices were put back on, a lot of repairs were done to comply with historic district standards. We used to do all sorts of things for Preservation Week, workshops, walking tours, all sorts of different things. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with those. The Vine Area Historic District was established in 1990 with an addition in 1997. In the late 1980s, the Arcadia Creek project, which was a project to reduce the amount of flooding in the area around Arcadia Creek. This is the Masonic Temple that's still there, that just is becoming the Hilton Garden Inn's Hotel. This is where the building that I work in now is located. So these buildings are gone because the buildings that were there could not get flood insurance. And they also couldn't get bank funding to do rehabilitation and make repairs because they couldn't get flood insurance. So the Arcadia Creek needed to be controlled, and it's there. It's been all controlled down that little creek. But this was the beginning of a lot of really good work because it created the Downtown Urban Architecture Design Review Commission and also funded the Historic Preservation Coordinator's position. So for a town of 75,000, we're one of the smallest cities in the U.S. That's not a super rich city that actually has a full-time preservationist on staff. There's a couple like Estes Park, Colorado, places that are really big ski resort areas that are very wealthy that are smaller than us that have a coordinator. These were some of the plans for Arcadia Creek, none of which came into fruition. Kalamazoo is what's called a certified local government. That means that we have met federal standards to partner with the federal government in administering local historic ordinances, preserving systems for surveys, and participating in the National Register program. And I'm just getting ready to prepare our annual report on that for the State Preservation Office probably next week. In 1998, work began on Kalamazoo Lost and Found. Everybody has a copy? Yes? And that was published in 2001? 2000, Pam? Anyway. The reconnaissance, and at the same time, the Preservation Commission talked the city into funding a reconnaissance level historic resource survey. This is the one that we are redoing upcoming this year. This was something normally this big is funded by partly a State Historic Preservation Office CLG grant. In our case, the city funded it completely out of the general fund, which was very unusual, which is why the State Preservation Office never paid any attention to the copy of the report we gave them because they didn't pay for it. Anyway, 2001, we did a tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright houses, which was very popular. We published Kalamazoo Lost and Found in 2001, and that has still gone through its second printing. In 1999, the state tax credits came back or started, and we had lots of very, very excellent projects that were done by, that. This is not the presentation I wanted. Hold on just a second, guys. I really apologize. I'm going to pull up a different, which one do I want? There, that's the one I want. Sorry, it's going to take a second. Come on, bring it up. Because I've gotten a lot more stuff I added at the end that I really wanted to be sure you guys got. And so this is the wrong. Stop share on that one. And there. There. Come on, from beginning. There we go. Sorry about that. We did all sorts of projects. We did 2006, we did a great unveiling where we took all the siding off of this wonderful house down on Westnedge near Martini's. This is before and this is after. Took us about 4 hours to get all the siding off. It was a lot of fun. These are some of the projects that have come and gone. This is the Upjohn Tower that's now gone. It was demolished in 2005. There were no parts of our ordinance that were able to stop the demolition of this building. The owners did not want it to be designated, and so there was nothing we could do despite some pressure that was put on the Pfizer Corporation by the city. It just didn't work. So this is, you're going to see several different things. We're going to talk about the Fountain of the Pioneers because this has been an ongoing project since 2005. Actually, when I started in 2000, one of the first things I did, or 2001, one of the first things I did with the city was administer a grant we got to repair the pool of the fountain and some other parts of it through a river grant. So that was kind of interesting. But in 2005, we knew that work needed to be done on the fountain. And we were starting to study it. We got a grant to study, do a condition assessment, that kind of thing. And even back then in 2005, people were saying we needed to remove and replace it because the sculpture was racist. And it was debated in the city commission, and a lot of other places. And the city manager at the time decided that he would convene a meeting or a commission that would include the Matchabeneshwish Gun Lake Band of Potawatomi, the YWCA, and other interested parties to have a serious discussion within the city about what should be done with the Fountain of the Pioneers. And the resolution that they came with the support of the Matchabeneshwish, was that the fountain should stay. And this was in 2007, but it should be accompanied by a historically accurate and equally compelling presentation that conveyed some of the concepts related to the Gun Lake Band. The fact that they were still there, that they hadn't all left for the West, and that Native Americans were still very much a part of the culture and history of Southwest Michigan. So that's what happened in 2007. In 2006, this whole block was threatened. There were plans for tearing it down. And with work over the intervening 5 years, by 2010, we'd found a developer who took on the entire project. He'd never done what they call a brownfield development. His work had always been out in the green fields, building on untouched land out in the suburbs. And so this was a whole new experience for him. And it was, as you can see, just a huge success. Those buildings were saved, but the plan at the time that he got interested was to take those buildings down and just leave it as a green space. This building we did lose. This is right across from the library. The park building was lost. We tried to save that, but again, there was no designation, and it happened. In 2008, we had this really good Where Place Prospers booklet that we could give out to people who wanted to develop downtown, that covered all the different funding sources and resources for downtown development for in the historic district and outside the historic district. And it was funded in part by a National Trust grant. If any of you are interested in copies, when my office reemerges from storage, I would be happy to provide you with one because it's really an excellent document. We used to do Preservation Month. We used to do all that. Every year we'd have all sorts of different things happening. 2009 was a very busy year. We were in the art hop. We did a walking tour. We had the awards ceremony and all sorts of different things. Same thing for 2010. These were all the different events we had going for Preservation Month. The Preservation Month for the new commissioners is May. So we're coming up on that. That's when we do our awards again. Every year we do our awards in May. We didn't last year. One of the big things that came up on the commission's radar in 2000, in the late 2000 aughts, I guess they're called, was that WMU still had not found a use for East Campus. and was beginning to talk about doing something permanent about it and getting rid of it. This is what East Campus looked like in 2007 from the air. This part is the building that's still there. Just this center section. That was the original building, the original Western Michigan Teachers College, the normal school that went up in 1904, 1905. This is I don't want to go into the long story. If you want, after the COVID is over, if you want to take me out somewhere and buy me a beer, I will tell you the whole story because it's a long and sordid story. So this was by summer of 2014. The university had decided that things were coming down, and this is exactly what was happening. So this is what it looked like before in 2007, and this is what it looks like now. It's just this one central section that's left with the addition of 2 wings that are stair and elevator towers. So here we're back to the Fountain of the Pioneers. In 2011, the Preservation Commission decided that their primary goal, their most important high priority project, was going to be the restoration of the Fountain of the Pioneers in Bronson Park. That would be fundraising, organizing, finding partners, all the things that would need to happen before we could actually save the fountain and make the repairs that were so clearly necessary. So this is kind of a timeline. I don't want to go into every single one, but we got an estimate for the repairs to the fountain. The city manager gave us, and the city commission gave us permission to go ahead and start looking for fundraising and working on it. Did a feasibility study. We got our first grant from the Jeffers Foundation. Began serious fundraising planning when the feasibility study showed that there was support for that. We got all sorts of grants. We did, the city commission wanted us to do a master plan for the whole park, not just for the fountain. So we participated in that and helped get a master plan in place to fund the entire park being done and the fountain being repaired as part of that. In March 2016, the city commission unanimously approved the Bronson Park master plan. June 28th, they were listed on the National Register of Historic Places at the national level of significance. There's 3 levels of significance at the National Register: local, state, and national. And this was considered, because of Iannelli's work, this was considered, as an artist, this was considered the national level of significance. And by 2017, we had raised $2.3 million out of the $2.8 million that was needed for the entire park. On October 16, 2017, the city commission decided to vote to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. And many people took that occasion to talk about the fountain in the park and how much they wanted it to be gone and how racist that they felt it was. It was quite a discussion. They didn't make any motions, but they didn't do anything, although I had the feeling that they came very close to doing some kind of action at that meeting. They decided in the long run they would wait until they could study the issue more. The November 20th City Commission meeting, this was a discussion item on the agenda. And that meeting was held, if I remember, that was held at the county commission chambers because there'd been a leak in our city commission chambers. And that was quite a long meeting that went on quite late. And the city commission decided that they would not vote on anything. They had no vote scheduled. This was just supposed to be a discussion opportunity, and that they would revisit the issue in 90 days. This is the end of November, so we're expecting some kind of action in late February or early March. And as it was on March 6th, the city commission, city manager Ritzema said that the City of Kalamazoo staff recommends the removal of the fountain and its pools from Bronson Park. And that passed after long, long debate at a city commission meeting. That passed with 5 in favor and 1 opposed and 1 absent. So that was quite a loss for us. By the end of April, 6 weeks later, they were disassembling the fountain, taking apart very carefully, very respectfully, I must say, but nonetheless, they were taking it apart and saving pieces. They saved the upright Native American and Pioneer, and they saved some of the fountain panels, some of the side panels of the fountain. So today, this is what we have. It's just grassy lawn raised up in the empty, what had been the pool edging, coping. I've got dates on this. There were very big concerns starting in 2017, 2018 about the First Reformed Church, which is this church, 302 Academy, and the fact that First Congregational Church had bought it from the previous congregation that had been there with the idea that they wanted to control it. They didn't want to have a development going in there that would have a negative impact on their congregation and their church. So they had bought it. The KIA, the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts, had bought the First Church of Christ Scientists on the corner of South Street and Park Street. And at the time, they had no plans to do anything in specific with it. They had owned it for about 10 years at that point and had been renting it out to various congregations. Most of them stayed maybe a year, 2 years, and then left. It was the home temporarily for St. Thomas More Catholic Church when they were renovating the church near campus. And we were also very concerned about the Nazareth Mother House and dorms. The Sisters of St. Joseph had plans to raise the Mother House and 2 wings of the dorms because they no longer had use for them. And these buildings had been serving essentially as an assisted living facility and offices for the Sisters of St. Joseph, but the assisted living facility for their retired members, and that they no longer needed them and wanted to spend their money on other things. What the Preservation Commission wanted to do was to offer local historic district protection to these places and to somehow keep them from coming down. Under our state enabling legislation and our City of Kalamazoo ordinance, the City Commission can approve a temporary historic district for sites that have been the subject of a historic district study committee. And in our case, both the Bronson Park National Register Historic District had been the subject of a study committee report that would possibly make the entire district into a local historic district. And we had also studied Nazareth at the same time and the historic importance of that to the city. Now in this map of Nazareth, you can see this is the old Mother House. And this up here is the new assisted living facility that the sisters had just completed. So 2019 was when all this came to a we brought our study committee reports and wanted to present them to the public, and we did. We sent them out to the parties that owned property, all the churches and other businesses that own, or other entities that own properties around the park. Most of them are owned by nonprofit entities, except the former YWCA building that's now Greenleaf Trust. And we notified them that we wanted to have a public meeting that would be an informational session that people could come to at City Hall and find out about what we had learned, what we were proposing, and ask questions. It was a very contentious meeting. There were lots of questions asked. And so we had our public informational meeting. We had another public question and answer session on March 11th at Ladies Library. Ladies Library was one of the buildings that it already was a local historic district, so they would just be added to a second historic district essentially. But so we had more questions there. On March 14th, city staff and someone from the Preservation Commission met with Nazareth, the Sisters of St. Joseph at the Kalamazoo Community Foundation to answer their questions and see if we could possibly get their support. And then on March 27th, we had a question and answer session for the Kalamazoo AIA, American Institute of Architects, at the Van Dusen Room at the library. This was going to be an agenda item at the April 1st City Commission meeting. And the City Commission, after again a very long and contentious process, I've got my notes somewhere about how many people that spoke supported the idea of the district and how many did not. The City Commission passed a resolution that prohibited further work on the establishment of the Bronson Park and Nazareth historic districts. It passed 4-3. So all the study that we'd done and everything to try to protect those downtown properties did not have the effect we had hoped for. By the end of that summer of 2019, the Church of Christ Scientists was already coming down, and as we know, the Christian Reformed Church, the first Reformed Church, has come down as well. So those buildings we were not, and the Nazareth Mother House and 2 wings of the dorm have come down as well. These are some other things that the commission has been successfully involved in the past decade. We did our Hidden Kalamazoo tour, was 6 tours over 6 years. We were sold out at least 2 times completely. There were no extra tickets left over. There were no ways to get in. You couldn't buy a ticket. And we had over 5,000 people easily that saw all these sites over the years. Over 250 volunteers that helped, and we raised between $40,000 and $50,000. So it was a very successful fundraiser, not only for the money, but because it engaged the volunteers and it engaged people with downtown Kalamazoo. The idea was that they would get to go upstairs and see behind the scenes in buildings that otherwise they wouldn't be able to see upstairs. So we went to the 15th floor of the Fifth Third Bank building. We went above the Studio Grill to the little apartment that's up there. We went to 28 different sites in downtown, and it just had a wonderful, wonderful time. Enjoyed it every year. Exhausted after it was over each time as well, but it was very gratifying, and we got a lot of good interaction with people out of it. Another new project that we've started is the Grave Issues Squad. We started on a trial inventory and condition assessment of one part of Mountain Home Cemetery. And then we have also done 1 day of cleaning the headstones, which is much easier than I thought it would be, just when there's just plain water involved. I thought it would be a lot more difficult, but they really clean up quite nicely. They don't look brand new, but they look very nice, even after just a good scrubbing with water. And then with the grant that we've been talking about at the past few meetings that we hope will be coming from the Gilmore Foundation, we want to continue, but we're probably going to just keep things slow and easy for a little bit until we can get to it more actively. I think we had talked about having a gravestone scrubbing session again in May if we can figure out how to make it work and if it's okay for us to get that close together by then. This is something that we had started too. Our first workshops we started in 2019. The homeowners workshops, the old house owners workshops. Our first workshops were held, 3 of them, in the summer of 2019 at the Sexton's Lodge at Mountain Home Cemetery. It's this wonderful big stone building on West Main. And we learned masonry repointing, window rehab, and condition assessment and planning your restoration, your rehabilitation project. We've been doing the videos since then, and I'm hoping we can restart. Maybe not summer 2021. It's probably going to be closer to summer 2022 before we can get started on it again. But the hands-on workshops were very, very popular. We also would like to get a historical American landscape survey report done and filed with the National Park Service. We have all the data we need to do it. It's just a matter of getting the funding to write the report and get it sent in to the National Park Service. We have the Fountain of the Pioneer. These are the pieces that are all wrapped up. They are not outdoors anymore. They are stored inside the storage building that, if you are an old timer in Kalamazoo, it used to be the skating rink behind the Stockbridge facility. And so they're stored safely now out of the weather and in a corner where the various machinery that wanders around inside there, the various trucks and lifts and stuff can't get to it to ding it at all, but they're still there. So, and we don't know what's going to happen with them. We did have a small public art commission subcommittee that was meeting, but since the COVID-19 lockdown started, we haven't met at all. We are working on the Reconnaissance Level Historic Resource Survey. I hope that'll be restarted this year. And I'll report on that a little bit later on our regular agenda. The Reservation Public Education Committee, we're still doing some parts of that, but for now, the boundary markers at the corners, that whole project is on hold. We did get the street signs done, and every time I drive by them, it makes me happy. It makes me smile to see those. I point them out to people that are from out of town or even people from in town that don't know what they are. So I think that's a really good thing that we've done. These are the things we've lost. We lost the Nazareth Center, the Mother House. We lost the streetcar barn at Cameron because it began to collapse. And the county land bank owned it, and it just began to collapse, and it became very, very dangerous. This building is still in place, the little Loring McMartin House. If you ever get a chance, when you're driving down Drake by Stadium, just take a quick glance off there to the east and take a look at it. It's a 1848 brick house, and it's been there. It used to be part of a 64-acre farm. There's still 20-some acres associated with it. It has been bought by a developer who wants to turn it. It's in a low valley, and he wants to fill it all in completely flat and build a car wash and a small shopping center on the site. That is, I haven't heard anything on that for months now. The whole thing is just kind of on hold, as far as I can tell. The Gibson Guitar Company factory, which is what this building is, and the smokestack, this is being redeveloped by Plaza Corp. They have taken apart the stack and marked everything so they could put it back together again. But it was becoming dangerous because there was so much mortar missing. They were afraid it would just cascade. And at the time, there was a big gas boiler right under it. And if it had come through the roof, it could have been catastrophic loss for everything. So it's been disassembled, but it has not been discarded. Obviously, we've lost this church. This was another one that we had a big concern about. And that's the end of it. I noticed the last time I was in the airport that this was what's on the, when you get off your plane, you're coming home to Kalamazoo, this is still what's on the display there. And that's my son, Tony, at the fountain in 1983 or 4. So are there any questions about any of the work that we've done or anything else from any of you?
Sharon, can we stop sharing so all the commissioners are on the
Yes, let me stop share. Bing, done. Okay.
That was great. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Would you mind sharing a copy of that PowerPoint with us?
Sure. I'll have to shrink it down a little bit, but I think I can do that. Yes.
Okay.
I can
That'd be
send it to
great.
everybody. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So especially for the new commissioners, are there any questions about any of the information that Sharon presented or how preservation works in Kalamazoo or how preservation works in the United States? Any questions about anything at all?
Well, if you think of something later, especially once you get the presentation again and you maybe flip through it again, just send me an email and ask a question. Because Kalamazoo we're very lucky that we have 2 commissions that actually helps to spread the work out. For towns that just have a historic district commission, they rarely get to the level of organization and projects that we do because there's just 7 people on their commission, but we have 14 people working on 2 different ways to preserve things in Kalamazoo. So we're also the city in Michigan. We have the highest per capita number of historic buildings that are protected by local historic districts in Michigan, and almost the highest per capita in the United States, because we have almost 10% of our buildings are protected. And that's huge. The average across the United States is between 3 and 5%.
Yeah.
So, Fred?
Yeah, when we moved here, I remember meeting you and you said that there were 5 historic districts around the city. You're pretty proud of that, and you have a right to be pretty proud of having the historic districts around. Who was in your position before 2001? Is that when you started, Sharon?
That's when I started. The first preservation coordinator was Dan Bowman, who was he had a degree in architecture. Dan stayed 3-4 years, Pam? About that?
Yeah.
Yep. He did not have a preservation degree per se, but he did have quite a passion for historic buildings. And his office was this closet that was maybe twice as big as a toilet stall in City Hall. The room is still there. I found it. And I mean, there was room for a tiny desk and a guest chair, and his chair, no file cabinets.
What was his last name?
Bowman, Bollman, Dan Bowman.
You might mention, Sharon, that Dan was actually hired as the result of the Arcadia Creek agreement.
Yes, he was. That's when we started getting our preservation coordinator, was when the Arcadia Creek project went through. Then we had Rob McKay, who was an architect with a very strong training in historic preservation as well. And he was there through 98, 99?
Yeah, that sounds right, because the last project he and I worked on together was the first citywide survey.
Right.
Which
and
you were hired to do.
Yep. And then I was hired to do the survey. Rob moved on to be, he's the official architect at the State Historic Preservation Office, and he reviews all of the federal tax credit projects, among many other things that he does. So he's still very, very involved. And then we had Larry Burns, who was an architect with a degree from the University of Helsinki with no preservation background. And he was 2 years. I think he made it 2 years, maybe. Yeah. He did not have much of a preservation training. I kind of really felt sorry for him because he didn't have the training. He didn't know what he was seeing and what he was trying to do.
I think he believed in it,
Right. But he didn't.
Hadn't been ever in a position like that before.
Yeah. I asked him, well, what are you going to do about the Section 106 reviews? And he said, the what? You know, so we're going to get to that later. The 106 reviews for this quarter. And then I was hired on October 22nd, 2001. And one of the people that I beat out for the job was Rob McKay, who wanted to come back to Kalamazoo because his wife's family was here.
Mhm.
So, and then I've been on it since 2001. So it'll be just a hair under 21 years 20 years when I retire this year. So
Maybe Rob
Yeah,
will apply again.
pardon? Maybe he,
Yeah.
he's a little younger than me. He might. Who knows? He'd be great. But
Good. Yeah.
yep. Any other questions?
Okay.
Back to you, Josh.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, let's move to action and discussion items. We still have a lot to get through tonight. So moving back to Sharon, what's up with the survey?
I'm very excited. We did send out our RFP, request for proposals, for a firm that was qualified to do the Edison Neighborhood Historic Resource Survey. We got one respondent, the Kramer Design Group out of Detroit. They came in at $75,000, which was nice. But then we had to send their proposal off to the State Preservation Office for their comments. And they commented that they thought that Kramer should charge us more and do a little more. And they wanted a little bit, they thought they may have undercounted how long it would take to actually walk the streets and take the pictures. So we're currently waiting for an amended proposal from them. And we can go up to a higher level if we want to, since they are qualified. They've done work of this sort, probably not quite at this scale. It might be a little new for them. So it should be a nice sort of partnership that we can get going together. So that's going very well. And we should know that probably by, I think, next week. End of next week, we should have more information about how that'll start. There'll be public meetings before we launch, partway through, and then at the end, there'll be public meetings to report out. So all that's going to be happening as well. In terms of relaunching the survey, I'm still trying to get the webinars scheduled that would let people be trained. But and the difficult thing with that is that the city can only host one meeting at a time on Zoom. And because of that, we're looking for an empty space that's big enough. And evenings are pretty prime. It's pretty hard to get a space. So worst case scenario, if we can't get a live webinar, then we're just going to ask people to go through the training video that's already on the Imagine Kalamazoo site. I'm going to update it, and then they have to register and get an assignment, and then they'll get sent out into the field. I'd like to meet as many of them as I can because I've got the backpacks for them, among other things, but we'll see. So we want to get started again, but it's probably not going to be till February right now.
Where would volunteers get that information about either the webinar or the training video? That'll be something.
You're on my list. You're on my list, Fred.
I know, but I'm talking about the Sarah neighborhood. Do you want volunteers from a neighborhood?
Absolutely. You can do it in your own neighborhood. You can do it in another neighborhood.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. You guys can go across to West Douglas, go to West Main Hill, wherever you want. And I'm working out all the different breakdowns of how do you choose an assignment, that kind of thing, because I don't want to have two people doing the same street and then missing another street. So that's the part I'm working out right now, but I'm hoping that can be launched again within the next 6 weeks or so. And yes, and I'm going to send out a preliminary email to all the current existing volunteers and other interested parties and ask them to have their friends, if they know anybody that might be interested, to get more people to sign up for it. And then you can register through the Imagine Kalamazoo website. You can register for it. And then that's where the training PowerPoint is as well. So, yep.
Pam.
Does downtown have a qualification or a designation for volunteers, or will it?
Downtown, the Haymarket Historic District has been done. I had a
Right.
beautiful day last summer and I just said, okay, I'm going to go do downtown or the Haymarket. But other than that, it hasn't been done. So no, a small part, the Church Square has been done.
Mm-hmm.
A few other things, but not a lot. So there's plenty of room downtown for people that if they want to go and do a part of the downtown, that would be absolutely great. Yes. Yep. The
Thank
mall,
you.
all the buildings need to be done.
Yeah, and I don't think nobody's done South Street yet either. Have
Oh,
they?
no one has done South Street yet. You are correct.
South Street's still totally open.
Yep.
There's some pockets of neighborhoods that have been done up to this point in time too, but there's still a lot that's wide open.
Right. And I think what I'm going to break it down as is streets.
Yeah.
Other than sets of streets, it's going to be like, I would like to do Axtell. Okay, you can do Axtell. Or you can do Park Street between Vine and Park Place, that kind of thing. So that'll be just chunks. Then people won't have to worry about turning corners or anything else like that. So I'm still working out some of the details because that'll also let people choose a small assignment. Like Axtell is actually kind of a small assignment. Or if you want to do a bigger one, if you want to do Westnedge, say from Lovell to McCordy, that'd be a much bigger assignment. So it'll be up to people to choose what they want to do. And then the nice thing about this app is that it will map for us. So I can get a visual readout of what's already been done. So that's really nice. So it's kind of slow getting started again because we got this technical scheduling glitch at the beginning of it. But our Amanda Cockcroft, who is one of our communications people, is already getting some flyers together and a media release about it that we hope to get out all in February to just get people up and running again. So it's doing okay. It's not as fast as I would have wished, but in the midst of a pandemic, we're not making bad progress.
Right. Fred.
Does the survey include sidewalks?
Yes, we're looking at taking 3 pictures of each building, 1 picture, even of a vacant lot, we want 1 picture. And then we're also evaluating the condition of sidewalks, ABCD, and the condition of any trees in the curb lawn. And that's other checkoff things you have to do. So, yeah. I mean, this is the city pretty regularly looks at sidewalks and stuff, but sometimes they just don't get it all. Same thing for trees. This way we'll be able to kind of go back and check and they can say, oh yeah, we cut that tree down. I've seen some really dead trees lately. So like the one in front of your place,
That's real dead now. It's a stump.
Yeah. Okay.
Although we're making a coffee table out of it. It's really a cool project.
Oh, neat.
Nice.
With tree rings and a timeline
Oh,
on the
neat.
coffee table.
Any other questions for Sharon before we move on? Okay. Public education. Regina, I'm assuming there's no update. I haven't heard anything from David.
No, I haven't heard anything from David. I'm still emailing with Phyllis Davis. Their staff is working remotely, so she's not sure who has access to what since. So I'm in communication with her. So we're still working on getting those to KPL. Unfortunately, I know it's taking a little while.
Okay. All right, then moving on to the homeowners workshops, item A in your packet. Sharon and Pam.
I have one thing to add, if I may, to
Yes.
the report that you received in your packet.
Yes.
I had email exchanges with Neil Conway, whose name is up there. I'm not sure we actually have him with us on the meeting tonight. Earlier today and yesterday, I asked him to include links to the OHA workshops on the city's Facebook page. And he said, yes, he would absolutely do that. And then he also said that he might have to learn how to install spring bronze weather stripping at his house.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, could we get the files for the city's YouTube channel?
Oh, cool.
So he's actually talking with Public Media Network about that. That came out of one of our OHA committee meetings. A couple of times we discussed it. And I think someone mentioned that the city's YouTube channel has like 30,000, Lene, 30,000?
No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Was that right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be an extraordinary number of additional people who have access to it.
Yeah,
That's
and
all I have.
the stuff is on Facebook. I've seen it already today. So
It's
Cool.
on the city's Facebook page?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow.
I don't remember
Works fast.
but as I was doom scrolling today, I found it. So
Okay. That's great. Good to know. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any update from you, Sharon?
no, nothing more from me.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. The traditional trades program is on hold. I don't have an update. Sharon, do you have any updates on that?
I want to talk just a little bit because I've been asked to serve with the Partners in Preservation and the National Trust for Historic Preservation Traditional Trades
Oh, cool.
working group. What we're doing is taking a look at what's there and trying to decide. Everybody agrees that the problem is that we don't have enough contractors and people that know how to do the work on old buildings. The question is, how do we get people trained? How do we both create the market for their work and get the people trained who need to do the work? Everybody that's preservation trades is scheduled and overscheduled, but how do we marry those two things, and not make it something that only wealthy people can afford? So we're kind of looking at all those different things. I've been polling people all over the country saying, through the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, how many people in your area have the skilled trades in preservation? Do you have any training programs in your area, whether it's for homeowners or for, at colleges or any other way? So we're kind of putting together kind of an inventory of what already exists. And I'm going to report out to the commission to that committee at our next meeting. Nancy's on that committee with me, Nancy Feingood. And I'm just very excited about this because it's a very tricky problem for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to go into right now. But the need is there, and if we can make it work and get it functioning, it's going to be a real asset for everybody, from nonprofits that are trying to rehab existing housing for low-income families to people who are trying to restore their church that their family's been in for 50 years and that needs some work. We just need the people that know how to do the work. So our program, and I'm hoping that it'll kind of circle around back in the long run, that once we have a program that we can do, we can propose it again to KVCC and maybe have some other financial backing and other things behind it that could maybe actually make it happen.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Sharon, has anybody, Amy and neither Amy nor Craig have talked to you, right?
Not lately, no.
Okay. I figured not, but
just kind of all just evaporated around the end of summer. And then, when I got sick with COVID, and then I'm going to just touch base with them again, tell them what's happening and, just keep them in the loop, because I don't think anything is going to happen with KVCC. They're just coping with, day-to-day life right now. So. Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, I'd be surprised if they reached out, but then I also wouldn't. Amy's kind of she's got, I don't know how, go-getter? Isn't people say that anymore?
Yeah, she's pretty enthusiastic. I mean,
yes, that's the better, enthusiastic. But
she doesn't let go, but at the same time, I'm sure she's got other things she's doing too. So,
well, I was going to say, I know they've been figuring out ways to do corporate training out at the Groves because they've been asked to do it. So I know that they've figured out, like, protocol-wise, what they need to do to keep everybody safe with COVID concerns. So.
Yeah, I know one of the things we talked about was a hybrid where you'd get the first half of a class would be done completely remote like this, virtual. And then you would just come into the lab, scheduled small groups would come into the lab to actually get the hands-on. That's one of the things we'd been talking about as a possibility. So it's just all kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay.
I should probably change that to me.
Moving to the cemetery project, it's on hold. And any new updates? I mean, I know we talked about possibly reinitiating it in May or June.
Right. Well, yes, and we're right now we're waiting to hear what the Gilmore Foundation is going to be funding. and how that's going to happen, because whenever we schedule, we want it to be a time when they haven't got the roads all torn up.
Okay.
So because there's no place to park if you don't have the paths in there. So we've got to kind of be careful about how we schedule that. And I'm sure they will be too. They can't close off the cemetery completely just because they're, fixing the roads. So people are still going to be tragically dying. So, on hold is the best way to describe it. So,
okay. Preservation Month. Believe it or not, it's coming up soon again. And we're looking to open the call for nominations in the middle of February.
Right.
Regina, I'll hand it over to you.
I'm not laughing for a reason. No. So I know that we had talked in past meetings about having kind of a dual month where we would have nominations that would cover both years so that we aren't ignoring a year. So as far as I know, and if everyone is on board with that, that's still the plan going forward. So we'll kind of have, hopefully, double what we would normally have. And I think other than that,
do we want to have a virtual ceremony this year?
I'm thinking we should just, I'm thinking we should just plan it to be virtual.
And then,
because not that I, want us to still all be so virtual in May or, but I think that it's kind of the easier thing to bank on at this point and make sure everybody's safe. So that would really be the bigger concern. So maybe, wait, when are you retiring, Sharon? June?
Not till the end of June.
Okay. So yeah, we can, Sharon, you and I should probably chat about what we want to do, or somebody else can do it if they want to. I know we are going to do the planning stuff in February. But if anybody feels a strong pull towards Preservation Month, but yeah, I think online for any presentation is going to be the best bet, and we'll save money on cookies, I guess, this year.
Right.
Well, maybe. I was just going to say we should get Tony to make cookies for everyone, and we'll deliver the award and a bag of Tony cookies. Here you go. Share. Be nice.
I'd take them.
No, I agree. I think it's a safe bet to plan for online, and it'll be easier, I think, to plan for online and then possibly shift to in-person rather than plan for in-person and suddenly have to shift to online. I think that makes quite a bit of sense.
And I know, last year we had already, we had decided that we were going to meet at the church that Pam has been working so hard to get designated. So I am thinking that could be a potential backup plan again for this year if we do end up. But I don't know.
Well, what I can do is
banking on virtual is the best.
I can contact First Baptist and the city and say, can we schedule our date now in May for our awards?
Because we're going to need to do that probably, right? To work it around all the other meetings. Okay, we better do that now then.
I'll do that. I'll do that as soon as I can. And then, like you said, and then if First Baptist can have the same date, if we're cleared for a gathering, we can do it live, which would be just charming and wonderful. Or if not, then we'll have the virtual date already set up.
Okay.
So either way, one way or the other, we want to go ahead with it, because last year the city really wasn't ready to do something like an awards ceremony, but this year I think it's going to be like, oh yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll proceed that way, and then we can expect the call for nominations to go out middle of next month.
Correct. So anything, and the people, the nominations that we got last year will be already in the hopper for this year. Okay. Right. So if you think of anybody you'd like to nominate that you think is deserving, that's done a good job with the project inside or outside the district, but within the boundary of the city of Kalamazoo,
Sharon,
Yes.
would you, I can't remember if you did it last year or not, but would you be able to send out the full list of every project that's been?
It's already been, yes, that'll be part of it. Yep.
I always find that helpful.
Yeah. Because you don't want to nominate someone again that's
Yeah.
already
Be like,
awarded.
oh, they already did that. Yeah.
Pam.
Could you also include a short list of the folks whose possible awards are pending, or those list of contenders that are already in the pot, so to speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
And last year's leftovers. Okay. I will do that.
Leftovers. We will.
Nomination.
Carryovers.
I know,
Carryovers.
carryovers. That's much better. Thank you, Regina.
Yeah.
Can't drink coffee this late at night, okay?
Yeah.
Last year's carryovers. So yes, I will do that. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Moving to sustainability. I don't have any update here. Everything's on hold. Sharon, do you have an update?
I did want to, at this point in time, much as I really, really, really would like to do the Hidden Kalamazoo book, I don't see anybody that's willing to take that on to guide that through to its completion. And I'm not, maybe next year after I retire, I'll be able to work on it. But right now, with preparing for retirement and for the changeover, we're moving some of the work that I do to other people within the department, all that kind of stuff. I just don't see having the time for that. So maybe we just leave it suspended for now. We still have all the material. It's still all together and everything, but just not worry about trying to rush anything.
Why don't we save that discussion for our planning meeting next
For the action plan. Yep.
Yeah. And people can think, that gives people a little bit of time to think about this topic, because as soon as, I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, but as you actually like voice that, I don't know. It seems tragic to just like put it in a corner for a little while. So that'll give people a little bit of time to think about it too. But Pam, you had your hand up.
Sharon, you said something that concerned me. You're in the process of moving some of the things you do to other staff.
Oh, this is just things like approving a roof for the Historic District Commission or something small like that you can clearly write out the parameters for exactly what it needs to meet. And if it doesn't meet that, then it kicks back to the coordinator. But that's going to save time. So it's just little things like that. Just little things.
Is that permitted by PA 169?
Absolutely it is. Yes, it says the building official, duly constituted building official, and all that certain classes of work, yes. And when I was on vacation a couple of summers ago, when I was gone for 2-3 weeks, they were taking care of it and doing a fine job. So we've got the expectations and parameters are already written out very clearly, and they know that if some project doesn't meet that, then they can't approve it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And it'll be even easier when the coordinator's not on vacation, because you can go right over and talk to the coordinator and say, okay, is this okay? So, yep. And the nice thing about that, it gets more people on the building department engaged in that decision-making process with preservation as their primary thought. Mm-hmm. And that I find that tends to leak out into some of their other work as well. Mm-hmm.
So we'll carry over the discussion of the Hidden Kalamazoo book to the planning meeting.
Yep.
Okay. So operations.
Josh, you skipped designations and sites.
Oh, thank you.
I know it says no change, but
yeah. Well, and the one big thing that we have going on, we're going to talk about the draft of the First Baptist anyway, but does anybody have anything to add to designation and sites? Thank you, Regina. Okay, now moving to operations. So to start with, last week, Sharon, Pam, Regina, and Catherine and we met to talk about the new idea of creating a grants program, with the O'Connor Fund and the Historic Preservation Commission. And we started to talk about some of the framework behind that, some of the ideas that we were thinking about doing. But Pam, you had asked to comment on this or speak on this anyway, so I'll turn it over to you.
Well, just a quick summary. We got through a big hunk of the discussion that I hoped we'd be able to approach. And given the feedback we had from that, I'm going to start drafting a guiding document. And when that is drafted or close to being finished, we'll schedule another meeting as a subcommittee. That's basically it.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's a good idea, right? Everybody kind of had a couple of assignments from the last meeting to look at grant applications, to consider some of the ideas and the uses of grants as a tool for preservation. So that beginning framework and that beginning discussion is absolutely there. And once we get some more concrete ideas, we'll move forward. No, I think that's good. We talked about the budget, so that's dealt with. The last thing that I had is, I've spoken with Christina Anderson about the Bronson Park Light and Shadow Study, and she received positive responses from Andrews University that this study will work as a student project. So they're going to take on the project. It's going to begin this semester, and it should wrap up probably by May or June. So in speaking with Christina and the city, they're going to take on the project, and the city is looking into this issue. So at this point in time, I would suggest that we not move forward on the issue until we can review the results of the study itself, right? So let that play out. And I would actually like to call for a motion that the HPC hold any further discussion or action dealing with height restrictions on the park until the study's conclusion. And this commission has a chance to review the findings.
I've moved to hold discussions.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? I see your hand, Pam. We'll get there in a second. Any commissioner discussion? Okay, Pam.
May I ask why you're taking this position?
Why I would like to wait?
Yes.
Okay. My logic on this is that the city has made a firm commitment to examine the issue, and moving around that, it jumps over the city's kind of, how do I say this? It jumps over and moves around their intent to focus on it. If they've committed to looking at this study, I'd like to allow that to play out first, then try to shove something additional through and possibly harm any forward progress or forward motion in an area that's already been fairly volatile in the past. I would like to let this part of it play out before we see what else is possible or take any further action. Does that make sense? I'm not really explaining my thoughts very well. My fear is that any movement that we do around or over the kind of commitment that the city's already made to Bronson Park would be viewed as totally deleterious at this point in time. And I don't want to harm any possible chance at the goals that this body wants to achieve. I would like to let the process that's put forward play out.
May I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would not ever propose to assume that any other efforts beyond the light and shadow effort would overtake or be worked at around, but only in addition to. A light and shadow study will affect a small portion of the district that we're talking about only.
I guess my point is I want to wait for the results of the study first before we begin assessing the whole situation.
May I finish?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think it's inappropriate for the Preservation Commission, which is charged to look after historic preservation in the city, to gather as much information as they can possibly gather with which to help make recommendations or advise the city to an endpoint. I think that waiting for a light and steady situation puts the endangerment of potential properties in the district at even greater risk. And I would like to remind the entire commission that the working group for the form-based code was promised that the important parts of the downtown design review process were going to merge over into the form-based code, and they did not. There were some protections, although they were small, in the downtown design and review process that did not move over, did not merge over to the form-based code. I believe the city planner, the planning department has failed in that regard, even though it was pointed out to them that it was important multiple times during the process. I don't believe that gathering additional information hurts anyone in any way. And in fact, it helps everyone to be better informed about other options.
Pam, the motion doesn't say that people can't look at or gather information. What I proposed is that the commission right now pause discussion or definitive action. That's not saying that it can't be examined, but what I'm saying is what I'm proposing that this body do is table further action or discussion on the issue until the results of that study are back.
Even though it may delay anything, any action at all for months.
I personally wouldn't vote on anything until the results of this study come back anyway.
Right. I'd like to ask another question then, if I may.
You may.
Does the commission have any objection to my continuing to gather good examples of where these kinds of areas have been treated in other form-based codes?
I don't have an objection to that at all.
I don't have an objection. I think, and you know, everybody has an opinion, but I think the reason that I agree with getting the data is because as much information as we can get, I'm all about having evidence and having some data so that we can make informed decisions. Because I don't know. I can't speak for the other commissioners. And I understand and I get your passion of what's going on, but the reality is I kind of agree with Josh. I need to have some data to understand what are the concerns, what is the outcome of some of the tests, because again, I want to be able to say that I voted for something because of this data and because of this information, not necessarily because it's just, a historic area and we're trying to save it. So, and I understand that it will cause a delay in you make, some things may fall through the cracks and get through before we actually come up with a decision. But I would feel more comfortable if I had all the information in front of me so that I can look at it, review it, and then I can say I voted for something based off of data instead of a passionate plea.
Lene, and for the other commissioners, Pam has been posting some really good examples of how other cities handle things. Yes. I haven't had a chance to look at them in depth, but if there's some visuals from that, would it be worthwhile to have those available for us to take a look at the next meeting or the meeting after? So you could see how, this city handled it by doing this, and this has been what they proposed, and this is, we don't know how it worked out because form-based code is relatively new, so we may not have any results yet. But would some visuals help, I think?
It would help me if it could be a discussion that during our meeting where we have a PowerPoint and we go on step by step by step by step. Because again, I can only speak for myself, that's not a subject I'm versed on. I need to be able to see what are your concerns? What are the bim, bam, bim, bam, boom? And what was the outcome of the data?
Catherine, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to say that while this form-based code initiative has definitely prompted the local historic district topic for Bronson Park, as a newcomer to Kalamazoo, I was surprised to find that there isn't currently one in place. I know that that's been something that's been volatile in the past, so I've learned since. And so while, of course, I would like to hear the result of the light and shadow study, there are other benefits, of course, to having a local historic district in that area, aside from this form-based code issue, of course, as we all know. So while I understand the need to wait and to not circumvent planning commission by any means as a city planner, I do think that there are good reasons to continue to look at the local historic district for that area. Should that be, as we discussed in the last meeting, that there may be some more receptiveness to that concept now. And so, if people are receptive at this moment, then maybe it's a good moment to go forward, or at least to continue the discussion.
I totally see what you're saying. I don't even know where to kind of start. There's a lot there. I think, and I mean, I guess we never know until we try, but I think if this commission were to go to the city and the property owners in Bronson Park with the proposal of another historic district, I think we would see the same outcome right now that we saw a few months back. I mean, remember, this wasn't that long ago. And to the extent that, I mean, I know Pam, Regina, Sharon, and I think that's it, we're at that meeting. But don't forget that at least one of the commissioners and the mayor said this commission doesn't need to even exist. The city commission can disband it at any moment if they choose to do so. If that discussion became that volatile, which is part of the reason that I'm proposing we put a pin in this topic right now, because not only do I think the outcome that we want could be very bad, it could actually possibly be worse than it expects. And I mean, that's why I'm saying I think we should hold a little bit and let the city go through with what the city said they want to do in this topic. I'm asking for conservation in this, or I'm proposing that conservation in this, that we take things a little bit slow here.
Sure, I guess I wasn't aware of the extent of all of that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, Pam.
Josh, I think at last month's meeting, this commission agreed that it was not a wise idea to approach local district designation again, which is why I went out looking for, as I said I would, ways in which we could actually use form-based code to add an additional layer of development standards for what is now the Bronson Park National Registered District.
Right.
Which is what I've done. And I would ask, have any of you taken the time to review the links that I provided and to look into how it's been done?
Yes, I absolutely have.
Two commissioners, maybe more of you.
I've looked at it. I have not studied it, but I've looked at it, yes.
Okay. Amending a zoning code is not a difficult process. And there are already substantial places in our strategic vision for Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, as well as in our ordinance for looking to do something like this. So while, as you say, Lene, it may be a passion, there's also a very logical reason for looking for ways to provide some sort of future development standards for an area that is already considered a National Register Historic District.
And that's why the proposal is to pause any discussion, any action, keep gathering information. Let's just put a pin in this for a little while until we have all the information possible and then make an assessment.
Well, and I'll say too, I mean, Josh has said it and a few others. I feel like a lot of what we learned in the reaction was that people don't understand the commission and the work we do. And I feel like having time is good because it means that we can create relationships with those city commission members and we can start talking to them and making them understand why this is a good idea for them to potentially back us up, instead of the response that we got the last time, which was misinformation, misunderstanding. And I mean, you saw the losses that happened. I kind of, and I also I like context, like Lene. I want to see information. I want to know, and I also see that information as tools to maybe get support in areas where we hadn't before. Maybe that result will mean that Kalamazoo and Bloom will help us and support our cause, or we don't know what partners might come out of getting more information, and I'm okay with waiting and having those conversations and seeing where it could go in the future. And I know that time always seems like it's working against us, but I don't know. If anything I've learned from working in a museum is that I can't stop time. I can only slow it down by cooling the temperature and using acid-free materials. So we're just gathering up what we can. We're doing what we can. And I prefer to take the time to try and make it successly instead of kind of beating our heads against the same wall that has just left us concussed.
And I agree with that. And I think if it wasn't the last meeting, it was the meeting before, when we originally talked about this, and we were talking about the light study, I think my comment was, what did the bird people say? What did the tree people say? That's the support we need. When we go in there the next time to make a presentation and ask for something, we should be able to walk in there and say, the bird people said this, the tree people said this, you can't get water because it's dry, whatever, that's just how I feel, because especially we did not, I don't know if the other commissioners, but I didn't know anything about the meeting outcomes of what happened that you guys attended. But hearing that gives me even more idea that we should come back stronger with more support.
So what you're saying is we need to look for allies too.
Yeah, you have to.
And I think that some of the allies might very well be some of the property owners around the park might very well support us, especially once we have the light and shadow study to show them, as something that we can show them, even though it may not have a huge amount of bearing. Nonetheless, it's something to share with them in the idea of transparency. In the nature of transparency, we could go and meet with Ryan Reedy, who owns the that big apartment building on the corner, meet with the park club, meet with Presbyterian Church, Civic, the Prang building. I mean, meet with those people, say, okay, this is what the Preservation Commission is concerned about, and we wanted you to know why we're concerned and how we're concerned, and this is what we've learned. And then they could very much well turn out to be our allies in that, because at least 3 of those churches and 2 or 3 of the non-church buildings have said they're very interested in maintaining the historic character around Bronson Park. And I think maybe we need to enlist them as our allies in this. And if we can show support, because when we get to the point of making that zoning change, once we get the planners to work with us and everything, we're going to need the city commission to agree as well. And if we can honestly sit down and say, the majority of the property owners around the park agree with this approach, that's going to be very useful for us. Because that was the thing that we were really criticized about when we tried to do the local historic district, was that we had not reached out enough and kept the property owners informed about what was happening. And we've got kind of a natural way to do it because some of those people, some of those entities are the same ones that I want to send out the study committee report to about First Baptist Church. So that's going to go out to them and we can say, and we're also concerned about height around Bronson Park. We would like to have an opportunity to talk to you about that as well sometime in the next few months when the light and shadow study comes in. So this could be, even though the light and shadow study itself may not be the end all and be all, it may be a door that opens that lets us have a reason to reach out to all sorts of other people and make sure they know what's happening and perhaps gain their support.
Well, then I would challenge you, Sharon, and the rest of the commission to both contact the city commission and help reach out to the rest of those folks.
I think it's a little early to contact the city commission. Because if we wait for the light and shadow study to be done, we're talking about late spring. And the chance to meet with people, maybe we could say, look, can we meet and have lunch on different benches in Bronson Park and just talk, something like that. Just get an opportunity to meet with those folks and just make a slow and steady progress, lots of information on the table, complete transparency. I think we could get a lot of allies out of this for this issue and maybe for other issues.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. If we're taking the discussion off the table and stuff, how are we going to move and work towards getting allies like I'm hearing everybody talks about? If we take this off and not keep it on the agenda?
Because I think it's early right now to, what are we going to present to people, to property owners in the area right now anyway? What I'm thinking is,
well, I'm talking about meeting with people like April, May, when we begin to have maybe the results of the light and shadow study.
But I don't think it's too early to gauge what some of the environmental organizations, how they feel and what their ideas are. I don't think it's too early for that. I think it's okay to go to the Arboretum Association, and I think it's okay to go to the, I don't even know, what do you call the bird people? I don't know, the animal, whatever. I think it's okay to go to those people now, just to say, listen, did you hear about they're going to do this downtown? And because we're concerned about the light. What would that do to your animals? What would that do to the birds? And I just want to also, just as a side note, stick a pin in that you do know you're about to get a event center down there. That's going to open up a whole new can of worms.
Well, there's no funding for it yet. So they just passed the ability to add additional taxed income on folks downtown. So
True. But just saying, it'll give us an opportunity at that point to even have those relationships and have those ideas. So maybe whenever that does come to fruition, we'll have an input on, I don't think you should do that to the building, do this to the building. But anyway, that's long down the road. But I don't think it's too early to start poking around to some of the other places. And what do you think? Did you hear about that?
I mean, to get an idea. If we're going to take this on as an additional project, then I think that we would need to talk about it at our next meeting, because otherwise we're just kind of talking and gathering information with no end result, which is something I hate because I want everything to have an output. I want us to have I feel like, oh, go ahead.
I think it would warrant another topic or another committee, because while today we're talking about Bronson Park, tomorrow, again, remember, we're getting this event center, or did anybody think about the traffic that, stuff
well,
like
the traffic doesn't matter for us.
But what does that do?
Would be...
What does that do to the emissions? does that do anything to the buildings? You know,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know.
but we don't
That's
have to worry about that.
No,
that's
okay.
beyond the scope of this committee.
I think that if Josh is able to keep communication open via his meetings with Christina and Rebecca, and then when we feel like we have enough information and have solid options through, thank you, Pam, your research and whatever research we make, and then get the shade study report in the spring, then we can start. I don't want to go and just have conversations with people that they're going to forget.
Oh, no.
Go and have conversations where we say, we think that you should pick a few things. We have some ideas in mind. These we think would be sustainable options. These people agree with us. It's not just our commission, and then we can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's what I think.
Because eventually we're going to have to take it to the city commission. So all the allies that we can have, all the support that we can have, and the first step will be, all of the people that are in the Bronson Park are going to get a copy of the First Baptist Study Committee report. Even though they're not owners, they're welcome to come and make comments if they want to at the meeting. And that way, the idea of being transparent and wide open with them. This is an example of how you also can protect your building by making it a local historic district. And then we say, so then when we're ready to talk to them about the light and shadow study and concerns that the commission has about the height of buildings around Bronson Park and it being a character district, we will have that opening. We'll be establishing a new relationship with them that hopefully is something positive.
So there's a motion on the floor right now that we need to vote on now. That to hold any further discussion and action dealing with height restrictions of the park until the study's conclusion and the commission has a chance to review the findings. So that's the motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 2. All right, so the motion passes. Okay, moving on. To old and new business. The city manager's office has requested to move the HPC meetings to the second Wednesday of the month throughout 2021. Initially, we were scheduled to return to our regular meeting time on Tuesdays in April, but they're asking that we keep the Wednesday time slot until the end of 2021. I'm assuming this is something we need to vote on?
Yes.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So we can start off by discussing it, or somebody can just make the motion that we continue to keep the meetings at Wednesday at 6 o'clock throughout 2021. But I'm assuming this is the only time through the city we can meet.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
I know that there's a lot to discuss, really.
The Public Safety Review Board meets on that Tuesdays. And we also have elections sometimes on that Tuesday. No, not easy. It can never be the second Tuesday unless it's the 8th.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so yeah, moving it to Wednesday I think it'd be a good thing. And it's partly, a lot of it is because of the city's restriction on how much they can do virtually at one time. So it opens up their schedule a little bit.
Okay.
For me, I'm on a board with the Stewart neighborhood on Tuesdays, but Wednesday's a good night for me, but that's, again, just me.
It'd be better for you then.
Wednesday would be.
Yeah.
Well, I need a motion to continue at our Wednesday at 6 o'clock time throughout 2021.
Move to continue the Wednesday time slot to 2021.
All second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, cool. Sharon, section 106.
I've got to pull that up.
And that's item B in your packets.
Right. We did not have anywhere near as many reports as we had as many as we had last year. Not surprising. There just wasn't as much activity. The section 106 is when the city is spending federal grant money on a project that might have an impact on a historic property, then they have to go through what's called the Section 106 process. That's the part of the federal code it's in. And that means that they need to review whether there will be a negative impact on that property by the spending of that federal money. Usually this manages to short circuit, some things that are not too great, but this year there hasn't been that much happening. I'm trying to get to, where's my, oh, there it is. No. Anyway, so there weren't that many. I just don't have the thing up so that I can look at it. So does anybody have any questions about anything that's on that report? Is last year we had 3 times as many items as we've had this year, and it's not surprising. Where do we go? Where are you? Yeah.
When I was looking through it, I saw the meth lab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was an interesting little building. I really wish we could have saved it because it was really an interesting building, but apparently it was quite a very serious contamination. So, and nobody wanted to take it on. That's the real problem, is that nobody wanted to take it on and clean it up properly and everything. And in this case, I think probably demolition is the best thing for it. So it was essentially an oversized garage that had been attached to a house and then all covered with this fake stone stuff in the early 60s. So
I was going to ask you, because I looked it up out of curiosity, because the description that you wrote that was in there, that it was originally a small Cape Cod and that there was a commercial block addition. The street view is from quite a few years ago, but it looks like a concrete garage face, like that's the side of the building they show. It was weird.
Right. It's not like even a very simple vernacular house. It's not much there. So yeah, I hate whenever there's a demolition, unless it's profound damage, I really hate approving it. But outside the historic districts, we have a lot less leverage than we do inside the historic districts. So I thought I had my the whole packet up, but apparently it's just disappeared somewhere. So anyway, and there were a lot of, the only stuff that gets reviewed is stuff that at our previous survey was designated as being potentially a historic resource. So there's big chunks of Edison, next to nothing on the east side, little teeny bit on the north side. Edges of Vine are included. Those are the ones where we do the review and we say yes, no. And we've got a huge lead grant right now that is rehabbing houses for families who have vulnerable children and want to get the lead remediated. And so that's been some of the headbutting I've been doing has been there to try to get them to leave as much of the historic material as they can. I know there's lead in the leaded glass in the window. It's a very pretty window. Why don't we put a piece of glass over the inside so the child can't lick it? That kind of thing. So we've been working out some negotiations on that sort of project. So you guys don't have to vote or anything like that. This is just the end of the year report.
Any questions about the report? Any comments? Okay. Item C, the character study. And we can do C and D together if we want to. The draft of First Baptist. So I'll hand that over to Sharon and Pam.
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up again. So Pam, why don't you start?
I provided you with some examples of cities in the United States, 2 outside of Michigan and 2 inside of Michigan, that are using form-based code in a variety of ways to guide future development in areas that have either different character. Carytown in Ann Arbor is a really good one. The Ann Arbor downtown district has 11 or 12 overlays of the type that has been proposed here, basically covering the entire district. There's hardly anything in that downtown district in Ann Arbor that doesn't have a special overlay of one sort or another. And There's also one in Grand Rapids that talks about a traditional city center overlay district. And there's a little bit of text from that one there too. I have also talked with, by phone over the last couple of weeks with Sarah Bronin, who was in part responsible for creating the Hartford, Connecticut form-based code that not only pulls out a civic building type for additional development standards, but also shows a way in which overlay districts can be done for that. And she referred me to another one of the contractors that helped put that code together. It is considered kind of like the Cadillac of form-based code for the United States. At least that's what I found. Buffalo, New York has something that is similar. It is really a very simple process based on the research that I've done so far. And I have some other examples. I talked with a representative from the Michigan Municipal League today and last week, and have some additional ideas of where to look for examples where exactly what I have proposed is already being done in one way or another in other communities. And I will provide some additional resources on that as I come across them.
No, this is good. Thank you. And again, like I said, I think this is really good information to have to kind of create a list of possibilities or alternatives if we need it, you know? So I think that's a good idea. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Pam on the character study? Okay, moving to the final draft of the First Baptist Historic District Study and the report. Again, I'm going to hand this over to Sharon and Pam, but before I do, I would really like to thank you, Pam, for taking the time and the just outstanding work that you have created with us. So thank you.
And keeping the committee informed, you know, with the emails and things that, yeah, very much appreciated.
So the process at this point is, I think you probably all remember that we're going to have a public hearing at our next meeting. When you establish a new local historic district, even if it's just one building like this, or whether it's 500 buildings, the process is the same. You create a study committee report, which we have done. That report is sent to the Planning Commission, the State Historic Preservation Review Board, which meets on January 29th, the Michigan Historical Commission, and the State Historic Preservation Office. And then all of the comments, and then you have your public hearing, and all of the comments from those three Michigan state organizations, our Planning Commission, and the public hearing are incorporated into this study committee report as an addendum at the end. They will have all the comments, and then it is sent. Then we'll take it to the city commission. I'm guessing it'll probably be sometime in March, maybe April, where this will go to the city commission, because the final review has to be the city commission. We're asking for an ordinance change to add this building as a local historic district, subject to the regulations of the Historic District Commission. And that has to go through, it'll be a first reading as an ordinance change, which nothing happens at that meeting. That's a formality. And then at the second meeting, there will be a public hearing for the city commission to also discuss and take comments from the audience. And then they will make the decision whether this will be a local historic district or not. So at our next meeting, we are going to have that public hearing. The people that are invited to the public hearing include the property owners. In this case, it would be the congregation and the other people who are involved with the First Baptist Church, the KNAC. And we are also going to inform and invite, if they want to attend the virtual meeting, some of the other nearby property owners. Everybody is going to be provided with a copy of this report and a cover letter explaining what it is and what the process is. This will be a virtual meeting. At our next meeting, it'll probably be the first thing on the agenda after we open the meeting. We'll just have the public hearing. We know that that the church wants this to happen, so I don't anticipate there being a lot of negative commentary. But has to be a public hearing, and we have to gather comments. And then it goes on to the city commission, who will make the final decision. So that's the process. That's the way it works.
Sharon, are we going to have anybody besides you taking notes at that? Should I plan on
that's a
making
really
sure
good
I get
idea.
comments down? I'm just curious.
Well, we will have the recording,
Right.
so that'll be easy. But that's an excellent idea. Can we get someone? Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea to free you up a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, Sharon's
Davina volunteering?
Well, I always write notes, but I know that when if a lot of people are commenting or like, if it gets to be too much, I just want to make sure we have everybody's names and everything's documented,
right,
like it would be if we were sitting, in the.
Can't we record? Is that legal?
It will be recorded. Absolutely.
It will be. Yeah.
Yep. We are being recorded right now.
Yeah.
But I will ask and see if I can get a city staffer and an assistant to come and take notes at the meeting. That's a really, really excellent idea. We should have that. Somebody should be taking notes. That'll be official minutes so that we can integrate those comments into the final report. Worst case scenario, we could just go back and watch the recording. But I would much rather have someone taking notes at the time and then just use the recording to double check. So I will ask and see if I can get, one of our administrative assistants to do that for us.
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Thank you, Regina.
Yeah, I expect this public hearing to go very smoothly, though, and be relatively simple, seeing as the study commission was commissioned at, by the property owners initially anyway. So it should go fairly smoothly. But
Yep.
You never know. And they don't always go very smoothly, as we know.
Right. But in this case, I'm hoping this will be a nice, calm, quiet, almost boring process, so that the other property owners get an opportunity to see what the process can be like and how involved it is or is not. They'll have an example in front of them. So.
Yeah, Fred, you're muted.
And the information in the study about the commissions, and for myself, can that be changed because we're no longer innkeepers? We close the bed and breakfast. So I just be a resident.
I don't think it's an issue, because when we started this report, you still were.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, it doesn't have to be quite that precise. We're still good.
Okay.
So you're just having big parties at your house now, or?
Yeah, got some family living with us. But yeah, it was just too difficult to keep that going with what you had to do for all the protocol. You had to leave rooms empty for 2 days after someone stayed, and kind of Russian roulette as to who came to your place.
Any other questions or comments on the study?
I did have a note, just for accuracy's sake. I noticed when it talked about the sconces, I guess you'd call them, on the front, it said that there were also some on the stairwell towers, and I didn't see any of those when I looked at it in the street view. I don't know if that's outdated, or just thought that might be a clarification just for truthfulness.
I'm not.
What page are you looking at?
Yeah, where are you talking about?
It's just a note I took when I looked through it originally, so let me see if I can find it. It's just where it had like the general description of what it looks like. Looks like page 17, I think.
I just did a search of the document and don't find the term sconce anywhere.
Large black lanterns is what I wrote down.
Lantern. Okay, let me check.
Yeah, it's second paragraph, second complete paragraph on page 17.
I see it. I see it there. Large black lanterns flank the doors. And are you saying, Kyle, that they are not there?
They're around the doors, but it said that they were also about the stair towers. I thought. I'm still trying to find it.
So
Is it the, sorry, Pam.
no, that's
ahead.
okay. I was just looking at the sentence prior to that that refers to the stair tower. Step back stair towers with additional Gothic second floor and square windows main floor are located on either side of the entry doors. All are topped with a crenellated roof treatment. The narthex entry walls are treated with a set of 3 slender, full-height buttress-like pilasters between and on either side of the doors at the corners of the stair towers. Large black lanterns flank the doors.
So maybe I was just misreading it. It's not talking about lanterns.
Yeah, I think in the sentence prior to that, where it talks about this, if that's what you're talking about, the stair tower or the tower, they're talking. It talks about the
Oh, so the pilasters are at
the pilasters, not the lanterns.
If you look at the pictures, the photographs on page 26,
right? Yeah.
You see the blue doors. You can see them on the annex, and then also the lanterns that are flanking the big main doors.
Yeah, I think it looks fine.
Yep.
Okay.
If you find another incident, Kyle, tell Sharon quick.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
I'm trying to be helpful, and I'm not trying to point out things that don't exist, obviously.
No, right.
well, for the review board, I sent this up to Amy, and she said I don't need that. I'm going to be presenting them the original one in my comments. So this is, however, the one that we will want to present to for the public hearing in our next meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else with the study report? Okay. Item E, meeting notes from last week, or from last month, I mean. Time is relative.
I don't think I saw anything weird in there, but I realized, Sharon, did I send you my notes from last month?
Yeah, you did, and I used
Okay.
some, and I'd actually taken fairly good notes. So.
Okay, I spaced and couldn't remember if I had actually sent you anything.
Oh
or
yeah,
not.
you did.
So okay, good.
Yep, you've been faithful about that. I should put you as secretary or something, because you definitely are.
Sharon, I can just send you some small typo things, nothing that changes meaning
thank
or
you.
anything.
Yep. Well, see, the thing is, because we don't have a recording secretary per se, these are just notes. But I always appreciate typos because they become invisible to me after the 4th reading. So that sounds good.
I don't see anything major. Anybody have anything? Any discussion? Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve the minutes of last.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Coordinators report, Sharon.
Let me pull it up again so I remember what I wrote. There wasn't an awful lot. I just put the picture of City Hall because it was at the top of my pile. As you can see, the numbers are down 2020 over 2019, but not as low as I expected for the historic district. 119 reviews in 2019 and 104 in 2020. I really expected it to be a lot lower than that, but it wasn't. The Section 106 reviews were way down, which is fine with me, because I don't like fighting with people about that, but that's what it is. So that's pretty much all I've got. Anybody has questions?
I don't. Any comments or questions? Okay, citizen comments on non-agenda items.
There were no citizen comments at this time.
Okay, Pam.
There is one for me. When are you doing your planning session? Is it the same February meeting?
No.
Separate. It's a separate meeting.
Yeah.
When is it?
Let me pull it up.
Okay, thank you.
It's like, and I'm still waiting for confirmation that we've got the date. We have it on the 24th at 6.
Of January?
No, February.
Okay.
February. Yep. So I'm still waiting for confirmation that we've got that time. I think that because it's not a public meeting, if they can't schedule us, we could schedule our own Zoom just to do the discussions that we want to do. We won't be able to make any decisions because it's not a public meeting, but I don't think that's what we intended anyway.
It's just, our intent was just to re-examine assignments and the work schedule. And if anything needs to be discussed or voted on, we can just save it till the next meeting.
Yeah, Sharon, if you end up not being able, that means that one of us could set up the Zoom meeting, right?
We both have academic accounts, so we
yeah.
can
So if you need, just let me know.
Okay, I will do that. That would be great. Because if they can't give us that date, then that just makes it easier. We don't have to worry about it. So cool. Thank you.
And commissioner comments. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Somebody's got to move to adjourn. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, Fred.
I was writing and I couldn't get my pen up fast enough.
Right? If you want to keep the meeting going, that's fine. We can hang out. I can't end my own meeting. So. All right. Y'all be well. Everybody have a good evening.
Yep. And you'll be getting a couple emails over the next week or so with all the stuff that I promised from this meeting, including the presentation kind of squished down so it's not quite so big.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Sharon,
Bye.
we'll talk soon.